There are moments in life when the world seems almost too ordinary, when the wind blows the same way it did yesterday, and the days fold into one another like pages from an unfinished book. Yet, beneath that veil of commonness, there stirs a quiet truth, that not all are called to live ordinary lives. There are those upon whom the weight of a greater design rests, those who sense in their soul a pulse that does not belong to the rhythm of the crowd. You, the chosen one, are not here by accident. The very fact that your heart still beats with a subtle ache for meaning, that your spirit still hungers for something the world cannot name, is proof enough that your purpose was written long before your birth. Most will pass the life without ever glimpsing the reason they were born. They will chase pleasures, build comforts, and call it living. But you have felt the whisper that comes not from the noise of the world, but from the silence beyond it. It speaks to you in your restless nights and in the still moments when everything else fades. It is that haunting sense that something within you was made for more than survival, more than imitation, more than the applause of men. And yet, how easily that voice can be drowned. How easily the chosen forget that they were ever chosen. You see, the danger is not in losing everything you have. The true danger lies in losing the awareness of who you are. When you forget that your life was never meant to be like everyone else's, the world becomes a slow poison. It lulls you into comfort, convinces you to blend in, and teaches you to trade the fire of your calling for the warmth of acceptance. You begin to believe that peace lies in fitting in, when in truth, peace only comes to those who dare to stand apart. For the chosen, the ordinary path will always feel heavy. It was never made for your feet. There will be times when your journey will seem cruelly lonely. You will look around and see others walking paths lined with flowers, while yours wends through the wilderness. You will question whether the silence means abandonment, whether the trials mean rejection. But the chosen are not abandoned, they are refined. The fire that burns you does not destroy you, it reveals you. The storm that confuses others is the same wind that clears your vision. What you call suffering is often preparation. What you call delay is divine timing. There are lessons that only solitude can teach, truths that only pain can carve into the soul deep enough to last a lifetime. You must understand that being chosen is not about privilege, it is about purpose. It is not an escape from struggle but a calling into it. The chosen are given heavy burdens because they are meant to carry light into dark places. You were not picked because you were perfect, but because you were willing to be transformed. The world will not understand you. It never has understood those who walk with divine purpose. They will question your passion, mock your devotion, and mistake your conviction for pride. But do not seek validation from those who were never meant to see what you see. The vision given to you was tailored for your eyes alone. And yet, even with such calling, there lies the temptation to ignore it, to silence it, to choose comfort over conviction. It begins quietly, a compromise here, a small distraction there, until one day you wake up having traded your destiny for convenience. You may still smile, still work, still move through the motions of success, but something in you will ache with unspoken regret. For nothing torments the soul more than the memory of the call it refused to answer. To be chosen and yet choose smallness is to imprison eternity within the boundaries of fear. The signs have been all around you. The restlessness that will not leave you. The way mediocrity feels suffocating. The way you sense truth in your bones before words can form it. These are not coincidences, they are reminders. Every setback that felt unfair was not a punishment, but a redirection. Every delay that wounded your pride was a protection from something that would have cost you more than time. The chosen often walk through closed doors because their path does not end in comfort but in transformation. There will come a time, and perhaps it has come already, when you will stand at a crossroads. One way will promise ease, applause, and the illusion of peace. The other will offer solitude, uncertainty, and the weight of obedience. That is the moment that defines the chosen. For while the world walks by sight, the chosen walk by faith. The chosen learn to trust the invisible hands that shape their destiny, to follow whispers when others demand proof. You will not always know where the path leads, but you will know who leads it, and that will be enough. Do not think that your struggle has gone unseen. The nights you wept in silence, the times you questioned your worth, the moments when your heart whispered, "Why me?" All of these have been heard. The chosen do not suffer in vain. They are watched, tested, and molded until their spirit becomes unbreakable. There is a wisdom being formed in you that cannot be learned in comfort. There is a strength being built in you that cannot be found in applause. Every pain you have endured has been shaping the vessel that will one day carry your purpose. And if you ignore this, if you let fear silence your calling, if you let the world convince you to settle, you will not escape the memory of what could have been. For your soul will not forget. You will feel the echo of an unlived destiny follow you through every hollow victory, every quiet night, every smile that doesn't quite reach your heart. The regret of a calling ignored is heavier than the burden of a calling fulfilled. You will not find peace in pretending to be ordinary, for what is divine within you cannot be content with imitation. You must rise even when you feel unready. You must answer, even when the path ahead is unclear. You must walk, even when every step feels like faith in the dark. The chosen are not those who feel no fear, they are those who move despite it. The fire that burns within you was placed there to guide others, and to ignore it is to let the world lose something it desperately needs: your light. So, listen. This is not just another moment passing through time. This is the turning point between the life you were given and the life you were meant to live. The choice stands before you, to awaken or to forget, to rise or to rest, to remember who you are or to let the noise of the world drown it forever. You already know which path is yours. The question is not whether you are chosen. The question is whether you will choose. The chosen are set apart not for comfort, but for purpose. It is a truth that few are willing to accept because comfort has become the silent religion of the age. People are taught to seek ease, to pursue happiness, to measure success by the absence of pain rather than the presence of purpose. Yet for those marked by divine intention, comfort is not a gift, it is a test. Every chosen soul must learn that their calling cannot coexist with complacency. They are pulled from the ordinary not because they are superior, but because their mission demands it. Their lives are not built for quiet pleasure, but for meaningful struggle. Purpose does not bloom in soft soil. It grows from the ground broken by trial, by waiting, by faith that endures when every sign says quit. The chosen are separated long before they understand why. Their childhoods may feel strange, their desires different, their sensitivities deeper. They notice what others ignore, question what others accept, and feel the weight of things most people walk past without a glance. There is a fire within them that refuses to go out, even when the rain of disappointment falls heavy. The world might call it restlessness, but it is not restlessness, it is remembrance. Somewhere deep within, their soul recalls the purpose written upon it before time began. They are not like everyone else because they were never meant to be. Their difference is not a flaw but a signal, a gentle warning that their life will never fit inside the borders drawn by the crowd. To be chosen is to be refined in ways that comfort cannot comprehend. Life will take you through valleys others never have to cross. You will lose things others get to keep. You will be misunderstood, judged, envied, and sometimes left behind. But the chosen cannot be shaped by praise or destroyed by rejection. They are forged in silence, in the space between promise and fulfillment. It is in that sacred distance that purpose takes root. Every unanswered prayer, every disappointment, every lonely night becomes a chisel in the hand of the one who called you. Comfort may soothe you, but it will never strengthen you. Purpose, on the other hand, will break you open so that strength can be born from your surrender. There is something sacred about the pain of the chosen. It is not random. It does not come to destroy. It comes to awaken. It shakes the soul awake from the slumber of mediocrity, reminding it that it was never meant to live a quiet, forgettable life. The chosen learn early that pain can be holy when it pushes them closer to truth. Every tear shed in confusion, every ache of waiting, every season of silence becomes a classroom where wisdom teaches through experience. The chosen come to understand that comfort might bring relief, but it never brings revelation. Purpose, though it hurts, reveals who you are and what you were made for. In the beginning, it feels unfair. You watch others walk in ease while your road wins through shadows. You wonder why your prayers seem delayed. why your blessings seem harder to hold. You try to be like them, carefree, unbothered, untouched by the weight that never leaves your chest. But something inside you resists. The chosen cannot live false lives. They cannot pretend peace in places where their spirit feels trapped. The more they try to fit in, the more life unsettles them. Discomfort becomes their compass. Whenever they choose comfort over calling, something within begins to suffocate. Purpose does not allow the chosen to rest until they return to the path for them. And so they learn that separation is not punishment. It is preparation. They begin to see that being set apart is not rejection, it is refinement. The solitude they once feared becomes a sanctuary. The silence they once despised becomes a voice that speaks truth into their soul. In stillness, they discover the sacred rhythm of divine timing. How every delay hides a reason, how every closed door protects what they are not yet ready to handle. The chosen are not shaped by speed but by depth. While others chase quick results, they are being built for endurance. Comfort would have made them shallow, but purpose is making them eternal. Every chosen soul will eventually face a moment of surrender. The point where they must choose between comfort and calling. It is the moment when all the illusions of ease collapse and the truth stands clear. You cannot walk with purpose and stay in comfort at the same time. Purpose will require you to let go of things you thought you needed. It will ask you to walk away from people who do not see what you see. It will demand that you trust the unseen more than the visible, that you believe in promises that have not yet manifested. This is the price of being set apart. The chosen pay it not because they are fearless, but because they have learned that fear loses its power when faced with divine conviction. In a world obsessed with safety, the chosen are driven by faith. They are not reckless, they are resolute. They understand that comfort is fragile. It disappears when circumstances shift, but purpose endures through storms. While others build their identity on approval, they anchor theirs in assignment. The chosen are often called stubborn, but their persistence is not pride. It is loyalty to a higher design. They cannot explain why they keep going when everything in them screams to stop. They cannot justify the peace they feel in the midst of uncertainty. But within them, there is an ancient knowing, a whisper that says, "Keep walking. You were made for this." And in time, the chosen begin to see how purpose weaves through pain. They see how every hardship carved new strength into their character. They see how the seasons of loneliness taught them how to hear the voice that comfort would have drowned out. They see that what they once thought was loss was really transformation. They learn that comfort might have kept them content, but it would have stolen their depth. Purpose gives them something comfort never could, meaning. It gives weight to their existence, clarity to their chaos, and direction to their days. Being chosen means living in tension, the pull between who you were and who you are becoming. It means carrying light through darkness, hope through despair, love through rejection. It means saying yes to the unknown and trusting that every step, though painful, is progress. The chosen are not promised ease, they are promised endurance. Their joy does not come from the absence of trials, but from the knowledge that every trial is working towards something sacred. They learn to stop asking for comfort and start asking for courage. They understand that comfort may fill the moment, but purpose fills the soul. The chosen are set apart not because they are favored beyond others, but because they are trusted with more. Their calling demands resilience, patience, and faith that the world cannot teach. Every season of their life, whether bright or dark, becomes a thread in a larger design. They do not walk easy roads, but they walk roads that matter. And though the weight may press heavily upon them, they carry it because within that weight lies the reason they were born. Ignoring your calling leads to a lifetime of quiet regret. It is one of the most tragic realities of human life that so many know what they are meant to do, yet turn away because the path is hard, uncertain, or lonely. Deep down, every soul hears its own summons. That silent pull that stirs the heart and whispers, there is something more to live for than routine and comfort. But when that voice is ignored, when its whispers are drowned by the noise of fear or the clamor of the world, a slow decay begins. It does not destroy you in a day. It works in silence, replacing passion with distraction, conviction with compromise, and purpose with polite survival. The tragedy is not that people fail, it is that they settle. They trade destiny for security and call it wisdom, when in truth it is surrender in disguise. The first sign of ignored calling is restlessness that no success can soothe. You may build a life that others admire, surround yourself with possessions, achievements, and comforts, yet something within you remains unfulfilled. It is not dissatisfaction with what you have, but with what you have left undone. The spirit that was designed to create, to serve, to build something eternal cannot find rest in temporary pleasures. You can silence that voice for a time, drown it in entertainment, bury it under business, but it waits. It waits in your quiet moments. It waits when the applause fades. It waits when you realize that everything you have worked for cannot fit the hollow within your chest. That hollow is not failure. It is memory. It is your soul remembering the work it came here to do. Ignoring your calling begins as a small compromise. You tell yourself you will answer later, when the time is right, when the money is enough, when the fear is smaller. But time moves quietly, and before long, later becomes never. You build habits of avoidance until you convince yourself that the voice was never real. But purpose is patient. It will not disappear just because you chose not to see it. It will follow you, sometimes in the form of dissatisfaction, sometimes in the form of frustration, sometimes as a strange melancholy that no external joy can heal. It is not punishing you, it is reminding you. Every unfulfilled calling becomes a quiet ache, and that ache never truly dies. It simply burrows deeper, waiting for you to notice again. There comes a point in every life when the soul begins to protest. The mind can justify ignoring your calling. The body can adapt to a life of comfort, but the soul will not comply. It was not made for stillness when it was designed for purpose, so it begins to rebel in ways you may not understand. Anxiety, dissatisfaction, even depression can sometimes be the language of a silenced calling. It is not always the absence of happiness that wounds the spirit, but the absence of meaning. You can live surrounded by light and still feel in darkness if your purpose is unfulfilled. Ignoring that truth is like covering a growing flame with your hands. It burns quietly at first, but the longer you hold it down, the more it hurts. Those who ignore their calling often find themselves haunted by, what if? It is not a loud regret at first, it begins softly. It comes to you when you see someone else doing what you were meant to do. When you read words that sound like the ones you silenced. When you watch others live with the courage you once had. And slowly, you realize that your envy is not toward their success, but toward their obedience. They listened to what you ignored. They paid the price you refused to pay. You begin to wonder how your life might have unfolded if you had only trusted that first whisper. But time, once spent, never returns, and that realization becomes its own kind of sorrow. You will tell yourself it is too late. You will say that the opportunity has passed, that you are not ready anymore. But what you mean is that you have grown comfortable in the cage you built for yourself. You fear the risk because you have learned to survive without purpose, and survival, once it becomes a way of life, disguises itself as peace. But peace without fulfillment is only stillness before decay. You may avoid failure, but you also avoid transformation. You may escape disappointment, but you also escape meaning. And meaning is what your soul craves more than anything else. Every ignored calling leaves behind a trail of unfinished growth. When you say no to your purpose, you say no to the person you were meant to become. You deny yourself the evolution that only obedience can bring. Growth requires challenge, and calling always brings challenge. That is why so many turn away. Not because they cannot hear the voice, but because they fear what it demands. It asks for courage, patience, and faith. It asks you to let go of what feels safe. It asks you to stand alone until your path becomes clear. But those who choose comfort over calling discover that safety can suffocate. Their lives become smaller, not because the world shrank, but because their spirit did. The years pass, and the voice becomes quieter, not because it has disappeared, but because your heart has grown accustomed to ignoring it. You may fill your life with distractions, surround yourself with noise, build a rhythm that keeps you too busy to feel. But every so often something pierces through. A song, a conversation, a memory, a silence, and the ache returns. It reminds you that your story is incomplete. It reminds you that you have something left undone, The tragedy is that most people do not die when their hearts stop beating, they die when their purpose does. They continue to breathe, but without direction, without passion, without the divine spark that once made them feel alive. There is a particular kind of emptiness that belongs only to the chosen who turn away. It is not the emptiness of failure or loss, it is the emptiness of unrealized potential. It follows you quietly, even in your successes. You may reach milestones others envy, but within you, there is always the sense that something essential is missing. You may laugh, but the laughter never reaches your soul. You may smile, but your eyes tell the truth. You will spend years trying to fill that void with everything the world offers. Relationships, achievements, possessions. But the void remains, because it was never meant to be filled by things, only by purpose. The worst part of ignoring your calling is not the loss of opportunity, but the slow erosion of self-belief. Each time you silence that inner voice, you teach yourself that you cannot trust your own spirit. You begin to doubt your instincts, question your passions, second-guess your abilities. Eventually, you convince yourself that the life you once dreamed of was foolish. But dreams are not foolish when they are rooted in purpose. They are sacred glimpses of what could be if you dared to obey. The cost of ignoring them is that you begin to forget who you are, and forgetting yourself is the deepest kind of loss there is. There will always be another chance to begin, but there will not always be another chance to begin young in spirit. Every time you say no to your calling, a part of your heart grows older, heavier, quieter. Regret settles in not as a loud voice, but as a quiet fatigue, the exhaustion of living a life that never truly belonged to you. And though you may still accomplish much, there will always be a quiet awareness that it could have been more, that it should have been more, that you were meant for more. The world is filled with people who once heard the whisper but turned away, and now they live half awake. They speak of what they could have done, what they might have been, what they wished they had tried. They smile at their comfort, but secretly grieve their courage. You can see it in their eyes, the dim glow of a fire that was never allowed to burn. They carry the weight of a life unlived, the heaviness of potential left untouched. That is the cost of ignoring your calling. It does not destroy you all at once. It simply steals your light one quiet regret at a time. True transformation comes through solitude, struggle, and faith. These three are not separate paths but intertwined threads in the making of a soul. They do not arrive wrapped in comfort or clarity. They come disguised as trials, as waiting, as silence that tests the heart. Yet it is within these unseen spaces that the deepest changes occur, where the layers of pretension and fear are peeled away to reveal who you truly are. Transformation is not a moment of revelation. It is the long, quiet process of becoming. And to become something greater, you must first endure the unraveling of what you were before. Solitude is the first teacher. It strips away the illusions that come from constant noise, from validation, from the safety of belonging. When you are left alone with your thoughts, the truth begins to surface. You begin to see yourself without the mirrors of others reflecting their opinions back at you. At first, solitude feels like isolation, like exile from the warmth of connection. But it is actually an invitation. A sacred pause in which you can finally hear what life has been trying to tell you. The chosen are always led into solitude, not as punishment but as preparation. The noise of the crowd must be silenced so that the whisper of purpose can be heard. You cannot discover your true calling while surrounded by voices that keep telling you who you should be. In solitude, you confront your own shadow. You see the fears you've hidden behind distractions, the insecurities you've masked with confidence, the desires that were shaped by others rather than your own heart. It is uncomfortable work because it demands honesty. Yet this confrontation is the first act of transformation. No one is truly changed until they have faced the truth of themselves and chosen to rise above it. In silence, you begin to unlearn the patterns that kept you small. You start to see that the approval you once chased holds no real power. You learn that your worth does not depend on being seen but on being whole. Solitude reviews the emptiness of imitation and the necessity of authenticity. Then comes the struggle. Transformation does not come through understanding alone, it must be lived, wrestled, earned. Struggle is the forge in which strength and clarity are born. It tests not just your patience but your belief in the unseen. Every obstacle, every delay, every disappointment is a lesson wrapped in disguise. It breaks down the false layers of pride and teaches humility. It teaches you to surrender control, to trust that the detours are part of the design. In struggle, you discover that the things you thought would destroy, you were actually shaping into something indestructible. The struggle of the chosen is rarely visible to others. It happens in the quiet moments when no one is watching, when you question everything. Your worth, your direction, your purpose. It is in those sleepless nights when your heart aches for answers that refuse to come. It is in the seasons of rejection, when doors close that you were sure would open. But these moments are not wasted. Each one stretches your soul in ways comfort never could. The chosen do not grow through applause but through resistance. Every challenge builds a kind of strength that cannot be faked. It is the strength that allows you to keep walking even when the path disappears beneath your feet. The struggle is sacred because it teaches empathy. When you have walked through pain, you learn to see others' wounds with gentler eyes. You understand what it means to be broken and still keep moving. Transformation through struggle makes you both softer and stronger at once, softer toward others, stronger within yourself. You no longer seek to avoid hardship, because you begin to see its purpose. You recognize that the fire which once frightened you is also the same fire that purifies. Nothing worth becoming ever came without cost. And when solitude and struggle have done their work, faith enters, not as blind optimism, but as the quiet knowing that there is meaning beyond what you can see. Faith is not the absence of doubt, it is choosing to walk forward despite it. It is the bridge between the struggle and the purpose it serves. Faith keeps you moving when the evidence of progress is nowhere in sight. It tells you that every unseen moment counts, that every tear is watering the seeds of something yet to bloom. Faith is not passive, it is active trust. It is saying yes to life even when you do not understand it. Faith is learned in the dark. When everything familiar has been stripped away, when plans collapse and dreams fade, faith becomes your only anchor. It teaches you to rely on what cannot be measured, the invisible alignment that works behind the curtain of circumstance. You learn that delays are not denials, that unanswered prayers are sometimes protection, that silence is not absence. Faith takes what solitude revealed and what struggle refined, and binds them together into purpose. It turns pain into wisdom, wounds into testimony, and waiting into strength. Transformation through faith does not change your circumstances first, it changes your perception. You begin to see that what once looked like failure was guidance in disguise. You realize that every fall was a necessary descent, not into defeat but into depth. You stop asking why and start asking what is this moment teaching me? What am I meant to carry forward? Faith transforms you from within so that when the outer world finally shifts, you are ready to sustain it. Without that inner change, every external victory would crumble. The journey of transformation often feels endless because it does not follow the timelines of the world. You may think nothing is happening while everything within you is quietly being rearranged. The old patterns are breaking, the hidden fears are surfacing, the unseen roots are being watered. It is slow work, and that slowness is its strength. Quick changes fade, deep ones remain. True transformation leaves no part of you untouched. It reaches your thoughts, your desires, your values, your vision. It changes not just what you do, but how you see, how you love, how you endure. There is a reason the chosen are led through seasons of solitude and struggle before they are trusted with purpose. Without them, they would mistake calling for ambition, faith for certainty, and strength for control. Solitude humbles the ego, struggle disciplines the will, faith refines the spirit. Together they create a foundation that cannot be shaken. The person who emerges from that process is not merely stronger, they are wiser, gentler, deeper, truer. They carry a quiet authority, not born from pride but from survival. Transformation is not a single event but a continual becoming. Each time you surrender something false, something true rises to take its place. Each time you walk through pain with faith instead of fear, you are reborn a little more. The chosen understand that their life is not about reaching perfection, but about becoming more aligned with their purpose. The solitude, the struggle, and the faith are not obstacles to that purpose. They are the very instruments that carve it into being. There will be days when you wish you could escape the weight of transformation, when you long for the simplicity of comfort. But comfort cannot give you what struggle can. It cannot teach you resilience or faith. It cannot awaken your soul. The chosen learn to thank the solitude for its silence, the struggle for its lessons, and the faith for its strength. For it is through these that they become what they were always meant to be. Not untouched by hardship, but transformed by it, not broken by the dark, but illuminated through it. The world cannot validate what it was never meant to understand. Those who carry divine purpose often find themselves living between two worlds, the seen and the unseen. They are called to walk paths that logic cannot explain, to believe in promises that seem impossible, and to hold convictions that challenge the comfort of others. From the outside, their journey appears strange, even foolish. But what the world calls foolishness, heaven calls faith. To seek validation from those who do not share your vision is to hand your purpose to those who cannot see its worth. The chosen must learn that misunderstanding is part of the price of destiny. The world does not recognize those who walk with the unseen because it cannot measure what it does not understand. Validation is the currency of the crowd. People chase it to feel real, to feel seen, to feel enough. Yet the chosen quickly discover that the applause of others is a fragile foundation. It shifts with trends, moods, and misunderstanding. The moment you build worth upon approval, you become enslaved to it. You begin to shrink your truth to fit the expectations of those who cannot see your soul. You start doubting your path the moment others fail to applaud it. But purpose is not a performance, and destiny does not need an audience. The world may never clap for your obedience, but heaven takes note of every step you take in faith. There is a loneliness that comes with walking in truth. When your conviction leads you away from the familiar, when your values do not align with what is popular, you will feel the sting of separation. You will look around and realize that the world celebrates things you cannot celebrate and ignores the things that set your soul on fire. That loneliness is not punishment, it is preservation. The chosen are not meant to find their belonging in the crowd, because crowds breed conformity. If the world understood you fully, you would no longer be walking in the mystery of purpose. The chosen are often misunderstood because their calling demands a perspective that only comes from faith, not from consensus. The world values evidence. Purpose demands trust. People want to see results before they believe, but faith walks without seeing. This is why those who follow divine direction often appear irrational. You may be building something no one else believes in, holding on to promises others call delusion, or walking away from things that everyone else would cling to. Yet, it is in those unseen moments that destiny is being shaped. The world measures success by visibility, but heaven measures it by obedience. The applause of men may feel gratifying for a moment, but it fades. The peace that comes from divine alignment lasts far beyond the noise of the crowd. To live for validation is to live as a prisoner. Every decision becomes a negotiation with the opinions of others. Every idea must pass through the filter of approval. Eventually, your purpose becomes diluted, your passion domesticated, your voice silenced. You begin to trade authenticity for acceptance, depth for recognition, truth for convenience. But the chosen cannot remain in that cage for long. Something within them always rebels. Their spirit will not rest until it returns to integrity. They learn that the cost of validation is too high, for it demands that they abandon the very thing that makes them who they are. When you are called, you will often be misunderstood even by those who love you most. Friends will question your decisions. Family will warn you not to take the risk. The world will call you unrealistic. But their doubt is not always malice, it is blindness. They cannot see what you see because the vision was not given to them. It was given to you. Expecting them to understand, it is like asking someone to describe a color they've never seen. The chosen must learn to walk in faith even when they walk alone. Loneliness in obedience is better than company in compromise. The validation you seek will come not from people, but from the fruit of your faith in time. There is a sacred strength in learning to walk without applause. It teaches you to draw from an inner source rather than an external one. When you no longer need the approval of others to move forward, you become unstoppable. You stop performing and start living. You stop chasing recognition and start pursuing truth. You learn to find joy not in being understood, but in being aligned. The chosen are sustained not by validation but by vision. They can endure rejection because they know that rejection does not define them. It refines them. Every misunderstanding becomes proof that they are walking a path too deep for surface minds to grasp. The world has always resisted what it cannot define. Prophets, thinkers, and dreamers throughout history were ridiculed before they were revered. Their ideas were called impossible, their convictions dangerous, their faith irrational. But they kept walking, not because the world believed in them, but because they believed in something greater than the world's belief. Their strength was not in their acceptance, but in their endurance. They understood that to be validated by the world often means to be diluted by it. The chosen do not seek comfort in being agreed with. They find peace in knowing they are faithful to what is true. In time, the very world that rejected you will come to need what it once dismissed. The light you carry, once mocked or ignored, becomes a beacon in the darkness. But by then, you will no longer crave their validation because you will have learned that your worth was never dependent on their understanding. The chosen are not called to be popular, they are called to be purposeful. Popularity feeds the ego, but purpose feeds the soul. The two can rarely coexist. Those who are driven by divine calling must learn to be content with being misunderstood for a season, knowing that truth always outlasts misunderstanding. The hunger for validation is the enemy of authenticity. When you let others define your value, you give them the power to diminish it. But when you root your worth in truth, no opinion can uproot it. The chosen understand that what is unseen is often more real than what is visible. They live not for recognition but for revelation. They know that the choir of heaven outweighs the loud applause of the crowd. The world may not celebrate your obedience now, but eternity will. The most dangerous kind of validation is the subtle one. The approval that tempts you to compromise just a little, to soften your truth, to make your calling more palatable. It starts with small choices, changing your message to please an audience, hiding your beliefs to avoid conflict, downplaying your purpose so others won't feel uncomfortable. But each small compromise steals a piece of your authenticity. The chosen learn that truth must be spoken even when it costs them acceptance. Silence may bring temporary peace, but it always leads to inner war. Those who walk by purpose must remember that their validation comes from alignment, not applause. When you are aligned with your calling, peace flows even in chaos. The world may question you, mock you, or abandon you, but inwardly, there is a stillness, a knowing that you are where you need to be. That stillness is your compass. It guides you through misunderstanding, through rejection, through delay. It reminds you that the measure of your worth is not how many understand you, but how faithfully you walk in what you understand. In time, the chosen come to love the silence that once frightened them. They stop seeking affirmation and start seeking direction. They no longer ask, do they approve? But, am I aligned? They understand that what is divine in them cannot be validated by what is earthly. The world may not see the full picture now, but one day, the purpose that was invisible will become undeniable. And by then, the chosen will have learned that the truest validation was never in being understood, but in being faithful to what only their soul could see.